Welcome to Great Talk and Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the podcast where we review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Hello, everyone. My name is KJ, the host, the CEO, and the Vice President of Great Talk and Entertainment. Welcome to the first review, aka the spoiler review, for Season 2 of Loki, Episode 1. If you have not seen it, pause this. Go watch this because it is good. There's so much on this episode. I don't want to spoil nothing. If you have not seen this, go watch it and then come back and check this out. So, y'all been warned. Let's get into it. Episode 1 starts off with Loki being chased by Morbius and other TVA members. At first I was wondering how they all lost their memories, even though the incident from the season finale of Season 1 where Sylvie stabs He Who Shall Remain, aka King the Conqueror. I apologize. And it still never made sense, but as the show keeps going, we realize that Loki is going from the past to the present. And while that's all going on, Mobius and Hunter, she and him were attending the war room. Now, this is a very big thing because the war room, we never knew that the TVA had a war room. Like, their whole jobs were to basically prevent this. But now they're going to war like were programmed or instructed by King the Conqueror, a.k.a. He Who Remains, that if something like this happens, you destroy that timeline or get rid of that person from every timeline, destroy every variant. And not to protect, but to actually destroy and control certain things, certain timelines, for King the Conqueror. And while that's all happening, we see Loki back in the past, and he realizes that Renslayer and King the Conqueror, aka He Who Remains, actually knew each other and had a love relationship as he plays this old taping. Now, what's interesting in the past, He Shall Remain had his face, like statues of his face all over the wall. But if you go in the present time where the TVA is at, that it was covered up. And you know what? It was kind of a nod because Loki does come back to the present and he grabs the stick that prunes people, zaps them from every timeline. He takes that from this guy called X5, and he hits the wall, and it shows He Who Remains face of statues. Now, what that reminds me of, and it's kind of a nod to Thor Ragnarok, where Hela, Thor and Loki's sister, she comes back and hits the ceiling, crumbles, and shows the true painting of her because their dad literally cover it up. It was kind of like that. So that's where that was the nod to his brother Thor and sister Hela. And while that's all going on, the council's they want to know why it's going on. And we see Hunter going really passionate, very emotional, trying to explain that, hey, we're all variants and we had no choice. This wasn't our choice. Like, we all once had lives. We were different people. Just explain that even Renslayer was actually a variant, that she's actually a teacher and she has a regular life. But it still doesn't answer the question why she's gone, why she ran away. And now we know that in one past that they know each other thanks to Loki, that they actually had a love relationship. And it's still unclear if they're broken up or still together, but from when she left from Season 1, it kind of indicates to me that she still has a connection or they're still in a relationship. And what's really interesting about that is the other council members are kind of like either lying, being gullible, being hard-headed, or all of them, but they just don't believe it. They think the way they always been doing is the actual way. They think that they're not the bad guys. And that's kind of like a Star Wars things where the Jedis and stuff, like they never question it, but they should. They just believe that's the way. And that's how it is in the Marvel universe of Loki with the TVA. Like all these employees and generals and soldiers, they just truly believe this is their life. They don't think that nobody's lying to them. They're just being very naive with it. So I thought that was very interesting to go that route. And it seems like there's more people who may be more loyal to Kang the Conqueror. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm pretty sure like Judge Gamble is in on it. I'm sure like X5 is like the spy, the one that is giving all the information back to Kang the Conqueror. He's the snitch, the rat, whatever you want to call it. That's what I think with that person and how this is going in the war room. I did enjoy a lot of the comedy in this action-packed episode because it was just placed right and it just made sense. And it's very like the sarcastic, the way Loki is with his sarcastic. That's a lot of the comedy is. And continue on from this episode, we learn that Loki and Morbius are jumping into past and present, but they didn't know the actual name until they got to R and A, where they got introduced by Orbius or Boris, Ourobros, but his nickname or his cool name is OB, so I'm just gonna continue and call him OB at this moment. But OB is the guy that just lives down in the basement, he's like in the job department. He's on the lower level, in the basement level, where that could be like the techs, the people who do datas and check on things like financials. That's where it kind of is in like the corporate jobs area. So that's where OB kind of is. And it was very funny to see how Morbius was trying to introduce Loki to him and explain that this guy is cool, we met, and it's been 400 years. But obviously OB is very smart and intelligent, and he remembers everything. That's why he fits for this job. And I forget the actor's name, so I apologize. But I know he's from the Goonies. So it's really, I haven't seen this actor in any of the other films but the Goonies. But I do think this is cool that he's in the Loki playing this character, and he fits it very well. And I really like how he's very straightforward, very monotone, and he's never sugarcoating things. He's telling the way it is, because as we learn that the thing that Loki's doing is called time slipping, and what they need is a Templar. I'm gonna say it wrong. I know it. A Templar Aurora Extraordinaire. And it's basically a machine that is very dangerous, very painful, and this is the thing that can stop it, but there has to be a certain thing. So Morbius has to go out in the timeline, because we learned that the TVA actually does have a past, present, and future. And it's very weird to see that, but it's actually a thing. And so when they go out, it's kind of like going to outer space. So Morbius space suit and set it just right so Loki can prune himself, because the reason is OB explains that this is a very dangerous thing, where for Morbius' side, it would literally rip his skin off, turn him all, and he would die. On Loki's part, if he fails his part, Loki is literally ripped out of all timelines and gone. Like, it basically says it's like going in a black hole and turn into spaghetti noodles, basically, which is if you go in the black hole, basically. So don't do that. And obviously this is very intense. But it seemed like Loki picked the worst time, and he ended up going to the future. But he was just looking around, and the door's about to close, and Obesity had like 30 seconds, and soon he was counting down to 5. It was going to be over, but luckily there was a phone call next to an elevator that was opening. Now, in the first part of the episode, Loki, sees this woman. Well, not woman. Well, he does see a woman, but he sees Casey, and he doesn't remember because he doesn't realize that he's in the past. And so Casey from the past kind of like calls the TVA, like, hey, he's down here. He jumps out this window, and there's a woman who's like a delivery, and it's very like Star Wars, like she's driving, but she's actually flying a truck, like Star Wars or the Jet Jetsons. Like, it's one of those futuristic things. And it was funny is she fell, like the thing tipped over and she fell, right? And at the end, it was that woman who was like the delivery pruned Loki. She was trying to get back at him for what he did, because, like I said, he jumped. He's trying to get away to TVA, and he crashed right into where Casey's at, and of course, he goes and tells where he's at, and then, he goes back to the present time where he does remember Loki. And so that it's very confusing, but this is basically about time traveling. This is definitely a multiverse story. And luckily, they get back in the nick of time, and they realize that the whole TVA army of police force is going after Sylvie. And now Loki and Morbius are also on their way to look for Sylvie as well. And that's how the show ends. Then we get a post-credit scene where Sylvie is in 1982 in Braxton, Oklahoma, which is very interesting. And she walks into a McDonald's, and that's how it ends as a whole show. Now, let me explain about this. So, episode 1 had a lot going on in explaining, and the timeline branches are breaking and destroying. And that's why Loki was having this time slip. And it was very important for him to get to stop it, because it was going to kill him. It's like literally hurting him. And he tried to play it off, but it was destroying his body. So luckily they got everything correct. But what the problem is, now the temple or loom is literally the heart of the TVA. So this destroys that whole, it destroys, like, whatever timeline they stand on will be gone. And there's a lot of questions of like why this is happening. Why did Kang let this happen? Because we've seen, like, in the past, was interesting is Kang the Conqueror, aka he who shall be renamed, he had a statue. But the time we saw in season 1, there was no statue. They had the three time heads, but never Kang the Conqueror. And now it was. So I wonder when it changed. Did it change right after Loki escaped from his timeline in the Avengers 1 from the side effect of Avengers Endgame? Or was he in a different path and a different timeline? For me, I thought about this, and I think that since from the Avengers Endgame movie, where Loki does escape with the stone, the Power Stone, from the Infinity Gauntlet, that changed it. I think Loki changed the timeline effect, where it did have Kang the Conqueror's statue there, but what Loki did change it. So maybe he changed it, and Kang the Conqueror obviously knew it, because he sees everything. because he was at the end of the time. He was at the end of the time, literally at end of time. And that's how I think that might have happened. And that's why Kang the Conqueror is trying to obviously either use Loki and force and give him everything he wants, where Loki always wanted to be ruler and the king. And Loki's going to try to see if he'll turn evil again and make him Loki god of the multiverse. But it obviously didn't, but Kang always has a backup plan, so I think he's going to destroy the whole TVA. I think that's going to be the whole thing. Now let's talk about Obi. Like, obviously Obi is a new character, and I think he's going to be a well-favorite character. I also think that he's also a variant of Loki as well, because variants can look completely different. Variants can be a different, ethnic, color, gender, and it's like there's Peter Parker, there's Miles Morales, there's Spider-Man, such and such, but it's still the same effect. So even Loki can be an alligator or crocodile, whatever version it was. But it can be. So he could be a variant of Loki, like Morbius can be a variant of a Loki as well. Nothing that much about him, but I really think he's going to be a big part. And he might be the new boss, the new general, the new leader of the TVA. Maybe that's how it really ends. But let's talk about Loki, the star of this. I see that Loki in this season has grown. I think he is more heroic. He's more Avengers-like. And I think that he's more caring and passionate now. So I wonder if there's going to be an evil Loki in this season, where this current Loki is going to face another variant Loki who is full-blown evil, like cold-hearted, like Thanos cold-hearted. I'm just curious if they're going to set that up in this season or in any Marvel film, honestly. Let's talk about Sylvie. So we get to this post-credit scene, and she time warps into the past, and she's in 1982, Bronxton, Oklahoma. Shout out to Oklahoma. I was there for a minute. I love it. But let's go back. Now in the comic books, this is where the new Asgard was at in comic books after Thor Ragnarok. In the Marvel comics, they actually go to Oklahoma. But in the MCU, they picked, I believe, New York or New Jersey. And then we see her walking to McDonald's. Now, I was one of the few people who got to see episode 1 and 2. And without spoiling episode 2, it's a different pace. But this is like the episode where in the trailers and commercial promos, you see Sylvie working in McDonald's. That's what episode 2 starts off with, that scene. If you've seen the photos or whatever. And that's all I'm going to say about episode 2, but it's different pace. So don't expect it to be as this fast paced as episode 1 was. But I think that her mind is, she thinks what she did is ended it. And she doesn't realize it. Yeah, she has the whole TVA coming after her. But luckily, Loki and Morbius are going to try to save her. But I think it's really cool, and I like the thing. But I had an idea or a theory that this is not the MCU past. I think this is a different universe. So I had a theory that I remember there was talks about when the MCU, Marvel Studios, does the Fantastic Four, that the idea was they would be they would be in the past too, like in the 70s or 80s, and they were going to do like that. And obviously they would have an answer where were the Fantastic Four when Thanos came, right? Where's Doctor Doom? And then there was this talk of not doing that, but having the Fantastic Four origin start in the current timeline year, where like wherever Secret Invasion and any future Marvel films will be in the current present time. That's where the idea. But here's what I think. With all that being said, here's a theory that I have. I have a theory that whatever universe that Sylvie's in, the Fantastic Four exist. And I think some way, somehow, that timeline is going to find a way to connect or combine with the timeline of the MCU, Earth 616. Because I think there's the timeline branch is spreading out, so they had to find a way to put it all back together and stop these roots. And maybe one of these are going to have the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, mutants. So I think there's something there for that. That's what I think. I think there's a reason why they put her in that era. And if it would make sense if the Fantastic Four exist there. But that'd be cool. That's just one theory. And then in the end credits, or not the end credits, the other credit scenes, we see a sling ring in the TVA office. So, what character from the Doctor Strange who has access to that got caught? Now, I was thinking about, would it be Spider-Man's best friend? But then I was thinking, has Disney / Marvel worked a really good deal and relationship with Sony to do that? To have a Sony character on a Disney Plus property show? I'm not sure. And I don't think they would want that yet, or will, on a Disney Plus. But then I realized about Captain Chavez, where she, from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, that she was learning how to do that. And maybe she got so good and she used her ability to travel to different multiverse, maybe the TVA arrested her. That could be one thing with that sling ring, because they showed it at the credit scene where you just see like all the names of people who did an excellent job doing what they do every day. Shout out to them. And put in those little Easter eggs. So that could happen. Let's talk about the TVA official handbook that we know we discovered that OB written the whole thing and had all the answers. So I have a theory that handbook was not meant to be made, but I also think that the way they set the TVA is because it's like a regular job, and so some they treat it like a regular job. Some are just bored, or some they just don't pay attention. Like nobody really reads the job handbook anyway. So it was a little joke, but I can also see that being believable. Where yeah, he wrote out that, but nobody was really paying attention because they're more used to learning from hand-on training or just experience of trying to stop a timeline or catching somebody breaking the timeline rules. So that's how I think that was. But OB, since he's all the way down on the bottom level, literally in the basement, that he don't get that lot of interaction like that. So him just reading and studying is how he knows how the TVA runs. So this is a difference. There's a big difference of how people do that. And nobody paid attention, but OB has always been paying attention, and he understands it. Even though that he doesn't believe a time slipping can happen, but then he believed it, obviously, because he saw what was happening. So it can be, the thing is, maybe the whole answer has always, I think the whole answer is in that handbook. And I think at the end of this season, in that last episode, Loki's going to realize it, and they're all going to see it and read it, basically. That's what I think, but that doesn't mean they'll stop Kang the Conqueror, but that's how that whole season's going to end, which is not a bad thing. I kind of think they hinted it. Now let's talk about who was on the phone. Who's calling on that phone? So here's like three basic one logical that I can think. One, it's either just another variant of Loki trying to stop the past Loki to make sure he don't make the same mistake, or it's Kang the Conqueror just trying to call and tease them and taunt them. Or thirdly, I think it could be one of the Avengers, and the one who I could see do it would be Doctor Strange. If they had to do an Avengers character, I think Doctor Strange was on that phone. Why? He's the closest one besides Loki and Thor, because they kind of know multiverse and time traveling. But obviously, since they did Multiverse of Madness, I think Loki's the closest one to sense that Loki's doing something in a different thing, and I think he'd be the one to sense the stuff. Or, I mean, I can't imagine it'd be Wanda, but that'd be crazy. But I could see Doctor Strange being the one calling Loki on that phone. And who'd prune Loki? Well, I think it's another variant of Sylvie. I think, because they said they was going to have a different Sylvie with a different person, a different look. And maybe this is the one. And that'd be cool. I think that would make sense of it. And I think that, because this was in the future. So, and we know the incident happened where he jumped off the ledge into that flying car with the lady who was delivering packages or whatever. She got crashed into the window, and when Loki got out, she fell, and Loki wasn't quick enough to save her from falling, basically. But where Loki just seeing her again was in the future. So I think that she's been trying to get revenge on Loki for a very long time, and she finally got him in the future. So I think that's what it is. I think that she just remembered it. I think she survived and she remembered it for that long, however many years now in that future. So it's going to be very interesting. And maybe she did it not for revenge, but because she knew what was going on, the cause, and maybe all of them are the heroes that needed to save the TVA. Who knows? So that can be one thing. But other than that, this was a really good episode. A lot of action pack. And I know episode 2 is going to be a different type of slower pace, but it's going to be definitely good. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this. But if I had to give this episode a 1 out of 10, just because it's episode 1, I'm giving it a 10. It was really good. It felt like a Marvel movie, and it felt good watching this. So, definitely, Loki's one of my favorite Marvel characters in live action, and I cannot wait to see more. So, thank you guys so much for checking out my review. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Subscribe, hit that notification button so you can always be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace out.